Yeah, sure. All right. Uh, First and foremost, we want to welcome and good afternoon to all our panel speakers as well as our attendees to our 7th webinar organized by Oxford Fajar, a subsidiary of Oxford University Press, and the Malaysian English Language Teaching Association, MELTA. I would like to thank all of you who are here with us today. I am Yong Cheng Zi from Oxford Fajar. This webinar is a series, this webinar series is a collaboration between Oxford Fajar and MELTA, where we bring to you experts and practitioners in the field of education to discuss pertinent topics relevant to teachers and educators. So for this webinar, Oxford Fajar would like to thank MELTA for inviting Sean, who's here with us, as well as Santi as a moderator for this session. So so as we start, I'm going to share with you a little housekeeping rules. So basically, just want to remind everyone that an e-certificate will be given to all participants today via email within 7 working days. And this session will actually be recorded, and you can access the recorded session in Oxford Fajar and MELTA websites as well as our Facebook pages. You will also notice at the bottom of your screen, there is a bar where there are Q&A buttons. So what you can do is if you have any questions to the panelists, you are able to put in your questions in the Q&A box. So we encourage you to put in your questions in the Q&A box. Through the sessions, there will be questions that Sean would like to find out from the participants here. So we will be putting up a poll as well. So you will see a question popped up on your screen. So do take some time to answer the question. There is also a chat function, which I believe many of you have already started using. So feel free to share your views on the chat button here and just let us know your thought as well. All right. So, and what I'll do right now is, so I would like to invite Associate Professor Datin Dr. Cynthia Yolanda Dos, the Vice President of MELTA, who is also an Associate Professor at the School of Education, University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus, to say a few words. So over to you, Dr. Cynthia.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Chengza. And welcome to our webinar 7 in this Oxford Fajar MELTA webinar series. I thank you all for taking the time to attend this session. And I know now, especially in Malaysia, most of the schools have reopened and you know, you're sacrificing and you're very, very busy, but you've taken the time and that's really wonderful. Now, the aim of this Oxford MELTA series is for English teachers, not only for you to gain the knowledge and information on English language teaching, but I think also a platform for networking. After all, one of the C's in the 21st century teaching and learning is collaboration. And this network, this platform, sorry, really, I just saw that. I saw we have teachers from educators from Philippines, India, Morocco, Nepal, Oman, Mexico, Uzbekistan. And I think that's fantastic. So also a big welcome to all of our international participants. Now, today's session, I guarantee you, is not only going to be informative, but also very interesting. Now, MELTA would like to thank Sean very much for agreeing to conduct this session. On behalf of MELTA, we would like to thank the Sandakan chapter for hosting this webinar. Shanti is our moderator for today. Just a little bit of background about Shanti. Shanti is a senior English teacher at Sekolah St. Michael Sandakan in Sabah. And I guess that's the reason why we have so many East Malaysians on board. She has extensive experience conducting workshops, training, and is also a CEFR trainer for the Sandakan district and leads the MELTA Sandakan chapter. All right, Shanti, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cynthia, for that great introduction of me. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for making time to be here once again for our 7th webinar. to discuss yet another relevant and pertinent topic, and specially organized by Melta as well as Oxford Fajar. And of course, Melta Sandakan chapter is once again very happy and honored to be hosting this webinar. So today, we are very privileged to have with us a very special and distinguished panelist. That's none other than the long-awaited Mr. Sean Kilachan. Yes, a little bit about Sean. Sean was born and raised in New York City, but has spent the last 8 years abroad, spending 7 years in Brazil and the last year in India, where he now lives. With a background in computer science and economics, Sean founded EduSync, an online English language proficiency testing platform, with the belief that technology can be leveraged to not only improve current testing procedures, but make teachers' lives easier in the process while also improving student engagement and learning outcomes. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Sean Kilachan. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you so much, Shanti, for the introduction. And I wanted to thank Melta and Oxford Fajar as well for inviting me today. I'm thrilled to see how many countries we have representing in the pool of participants. So thank you everybody for joining. So I will just jump right in here, share my screen with everyone. So as was mentioned, today's talk is going to be primarily about assessment and specifically about formative assessment. Now, what I will be doing is during the talk, I encourage all of you to ask questions, to also, engage as much as we can, because the idea is for this to be collaborative to the highest extent that it can be. So let me just jump right in here. Before I get started about specifically what it is that we do, I wanted to tell a story about Hannah. Now, Hannah is the head of English programs at the University of Auckland in New Zealand, a school that we work with extensively. And I know that many of you are coming from different walks of life in terms of the students you're teaching, as well as the age demographics. So I'm going to be giving a general description about, how we approach testing and how you can use technology to help no matter where you sit on the spectrum. So in Hannah's case, they have quite a serious problem. And this was a problem before the most recent situation with COVID, but now it has been dramatically exacerbated. So some of the issues that she currently faces. For their testing procedures, they do a lot of their testing with pen and paper or simple multiple choice tests on a computer. For the productive English skills of speaking and writing, those are typically done via telephone or Skype. She does not really have a cohesive reporting tool for her and her staff to really help them understand what's going on amongst their dozens or of classes ranging different levels. And on a monthly basis, they waste over 200 hours conducting manual evaluations of students. Now, this goes for their classes from the A-level students, A1, A2, all the way up to their B1, B2 students who are preparing for entry to the university. So enter the EduSync solution. So just to give everyone a background on what it is that we do, we take a tech-based approach to assessment, English language proficiency testing specifically. So on the platform, we provide training and mock testing for high-stakes exams like the IELTS, TOEFL, and TOEIC. The talk today is going to be more about our flagship product, which is our placement test and level test that uses the CEFR. And this is designed specifically for formative testing. And we also provide teachers and admins with detailed reports and analysis on their students. So no more guesswork in terms of where each individual student lies, but you actually will gain insights that the technology allows you to do. Furthermore, given that everyone is now remote, we've also had to adapt to the current times. And for institutions conducting high-stakes testing, we also provide some remote proctoring tools that use artificial intelligence to prevent cheating. Furthermore, we've also developed a system to allow anyone to make their own test. And this is open to private teachers as well as universities, really anyone who needs to put their tests online. So it's designed to be language and content agnostic, meaning you can put up any kind of content, choose from our bank of question types, of which there are over 40 different questions, and it allows you to actually disseminate tests and content around the world instantaneously. So a little bit more about what it is that we do that makes us different. Everything we do is 100% online and also based in the browser or in the mobile app. So it really is a modern solution to testing. We also leverage the use of over 1,000 certified professors to conduct evaluations for the productive skills. We like to call this the Uber of English testing, where the test takers are the passengers and the professors are the drivers. When a student takes a test, one of our certified evaluators will receive a message saying you have an evaluation to conduct. They'll log on and they'll evaluate the test within 24 hours. That allows the detailed reports to be generated both for individual users as well as for institutions. And we do all of this affordably and at scale. We primarily work outside of the Western countries, Western world. As was mentioned, I'm living in India. We have staff all over South America as well, and we're even expanding in Southeast Asia. So just a couple of screenshots about, to showcase the platform itself. So we give details to the students and the institutions around the specific categories and skills of each of the main skills, reading, listening, speaking, and writing, so that you can actually gain insight as to where your students stand. And for the productive skills, which I imagine many of you, even at the lower levels, are still working towards, we provide even more insight. So this really allows for scalable and affordable testing of spoken and written English. We analyze things from fluency and coherence to vocab and grammar, as well as accent and pronunciation, which in today's working world has become significant for individuals looking for employment or even looking to get to levels of higher education. Just some numbers about the company. We currently have 300,000 students on the platform. There does not exist a country in the world that does not have an EduSync user. 8 million questions have been answered. And over the course of the last 3 years since we've launched the software, 93% of students that use it improve their test scores. And again, with the focus on formative testing, all of this is really tied to the CEFR. Some existing clients, given the current situation, even though I'm living in India and my staff is mostly in South America, we have garnered a lot of interest from some really large name universities and institutions, just to show you guys who we're currently working with. Now, a little bit about me personally. So I'm born and raised in New York City. My father is originally from India, so it was a long time coming for me to finally move here. I now live in Mumbai, where I've been for the better part of the last year. I graduated from university in 2011, majoring in economics and computer science. My dream was to be a banker before I became an education technology professional. The journey of EduSync actually started when I moved to Brazil in 2013, where I lived for 6 to 7 years before moving to India. And I speak English and Portuguese fluently, and I'm currently learning Hindi with great difficulty. So I see there have been a few questions asked, so let me just check these out before I dive into the actual meat of the presentation today. Okay, so I'll address some of these as we're going through. The answer is yes, there are tons of apps for formative testing, and I'll be diving into some of those a little bit later in the presentation. Just to get this started around formative assessment, I know that you all as educational professionals know what formative assessment is, but just to draw the line, the focus today is really going to be on testing students' knowledge and skills as opposed to just giving them a grade or a level. The idea of assessment is really more of a holistic approach and trying to get the big picture of students as they go through their various courses. So again, specifically for formative testing, there are numerous ways of doing this, as I'm sure all of you have done, whether consciously or unconsciously, subconsciously in the classroom. But again, the main focus here is testing during the learning process in a way that is not invasive but that also provides you as teachers with insights as to where all of your students lie and how to guide your teaching. So this is as much a tool for the students as it is for the educators. Now, some examples of informal versus formal. Informal is more performance driven. Are percentage correct on an exam? How many words have you pronounced correctly or read correctly in an assessment? And it's really designed, again, to inform teachers how to guide their courses. The formal testing is more aligned to standardized procedures, standardized testing, and is really meant to compare and contrast students across an age range or across a skill range. I'm having technical difficulties here. So one thing I wanted to discuss today specifically was the difference between BC, before Corona, and AD, or after disease. I think we've all seen a very dramatic change in how this pandemic has affected our ability to teach and the things that we need to teach. So just to touch on this quickly, I think some of the more tech-driven solutions in this post-Corona phase are really focused on scalable instruction. So as is listed here, weapons of mass instruction, continuous sessions. So even though I know we're all doing dozens of Zoom calls on a daily basis, how do you continuously get the user engaged and learning using applications and technology? Personalizing the learning with artificial intelligence, as really is used in this distance learning fashion using software. So software collecting data on the students, feeding them exercises, and feeding you with information. Also, one of the most important things I think on this list here is Hollywood meets Harvard. So the idea of replicating what you do in the class via Zoom is not the idea here. The idea is really to be engaging and improve student learning outcomes based on how we can use technology. So formative testing before Corona, again, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this. Scheduling pen and paper tests in class, giving 1-minute papers on specific topics. For English specifically, this would be as students are in the classroom, maybe asking them to write a few sentences, especially for the A-level learners, just to gauge if they're actually grasping and retaining the material. Low stakes quizzes or polls during the class is also something that we've seen that's quite common, and even entry and exit slips. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but just to reinforce what this actually is, entry and exit slips are when students come in and when they leave the course, you can actually gauge or test them, what we would call a stealth test or a stealth assessment, where you ask them a few questions that seem relatively innocent, and it actually helps provide you with, as an educator, with data around what you need to be teaching and how you can be teaching better. So I'd like to do a little poll here now before I jump into formative testing in the world of post-Corona. So you should all be receiving a poll momentarily on your screens. The idea here is really to understand from you guys how you're currently delivering your formative testing. And this list was curated based on my personal experience in talking to educators and educational institutions during the last couple months that things have gone fully digital. So you can select more than one option here, but if you guys could respond to this poll, I would appreciate it, in that it would help me further guide how I'm going to deliver the rest of this presentation. A presentation on formative assessments using polls to help guide the rest of the presentation. So again, the idea here really is to, the second half of the presentation that I'm going to dive into now, it's really more to showcase to you guys different strategies and software that you can actually use in the classroom. I'm just looking at some of these questions here. Yes, we'll be delivering after the session, we'll be delivering the PowerPoint presentation as well as some materials, other softwares that I'm not going to go through here for lack of time, that you guys can all explore and use and see how you can leverage in your own classrooms. Okay, great. So The results here, the vast majority of people are using Google Docs. I presume this is Google Forms, which actually allows you to create questions and then deliver them to students. I see PDF was the second highest, software, Zoom and video chat, and then others. For those who chose others, I'm going to presume you guys are using some kind of software to actually deliver your tests. But this is great. So thank you guys all for answering. Just going into, I'll go into a few of these questions now that we're moving into the tech realm of this. So how does one test or conduct formative assessments regularly when the students are at home and using computers? So I wanted to kick this part of the session off with a quote that I think many of you have heard over the course of the last couple of years, but something that I think is fundamentally important. Technology cannot replace teachers, but teachers who use technology will replace those who don't. I actually don't believe this to be true at all. However, I do believe this to be true. Technology can't replace teachers, but teachers who use technology effectively will replace teachers who don't. Now, again, the way that most testing is currently conducted is by one of these measures. Zoom being the most popular that I've seen in my experience. Google Docs, we work with a number of schools that transition from Google Docs into the EduSync platform, PDF or Microsoft Word, and email. Now, obviously, there's a number of shortcomings when it comes to a lot of these technologies. While many of them are free or extremely low cost, they do have limitations in terms of the types of testing you can actually conduct and student engagement. I think the worst offender is Zoom. So even though obviously we're all on Zoom right now, and you know, it's proven to be one of the most crucial platforms for communication, especially in the last couple of months, I want to strongly encourage everyone who's participating right now in this session to not use Zoom to conduct your testing. We've seen over the course of the last few months, speaking with dozens of educational institutions, most of them are in fact conducting their assessments over Zoom. They will send a PDF to the students who will, or a Microsoft Word document, and they'll actually watch them via Zoom as they do their tests. Now, I think this is something that we're all still getting used to, as the new normal is what everyone is calling it in this AD after disease environment. But I think the important thing to remember is that student engagement is key here. So before I proceed, let me check out some of these questions here. So is this applicable for other subjects? The softwares I'm going to dive into now are applicable for many subjects, not just English teaching. However, they are usable specifically for CEFR-based testing as well, which is intended to be the main topic, but they can be used throughout an educational institution. So, and again, after the session, we'll be sharing my PowerPoint slides as well as a list of different types of softwares that I've come across and have recommended to educators over the course of the last few months to for them to use throughout their courses. Is there any app for formative testing? Yes, there are numerous apps for this. I will be going into those momentarily. How would you conduct formative assessments to students who have different abilities despite the fact that they are in the same age? Now, this is one of the things that formative testing allows you to do, especially with software. Because the software can actually track each student's individual abilities, you can actually customize the tests accordingly. And some technology will actually do it by itself. So I'm sure you've all heard of the idea of adaptive testing. This is something that's become even more prevalent now that, you know, we're all using technology regularly. But the idea of doing adaptive testing on a regular basis for formative testing is something that I think many teachers are welcoming. It allows you to collect data on the students. The students actually will see questions that are specifically aligned to their abilities and will change based on the student who's taking it. So I'll give you the example of EduSync. We're in the process of actually building an adaptive testing platform right now, according to the CEFR. So 5 students sit down to take the test, and each one will see a different exam. You have a gigantic database of questions where the system automatically pulls the questions from, and the questions are tagged according to difficulty. And as the student answers, the test adapts in real time. So, and the beauty of this is that it can be used in any subject. You can actually issue, or you can actually have the students using the same platform to receive their exams, but all of their exams will be different. So to dive a little bit more into the technical aspect of this, the way that this works is every question on the system is actually tagged with a few different characteristics. And I'll actually just move the slide to one of the topics I'll be speaking about next. For the adaptive testing component, every single question is tagged with a specific set of characteristics, whether it's difficulty level, the type of question. There's 5 or 6 different tags that we use currently on our system. And as students answer them, the system will actually process their answers in real time and then feed them questions according to their needs. So if all of us had to take a test on the EduSync platform and we answered the first question correct or incorrect, and then the second question correct or incorrect, the system would take into account all the different characteristics of each question and then feed you questions accordingly. So I'll talk about this a bit more when I get to the EduSync system specifically. But this also addresses a few of the issues that another couple of questions being asked here about planning and executing quizzes. When you use a platform like Zoom or Google Docs, you have to manually put the questions up and make sure they're different and plan accordingly. Platforms that exist nowadays, I'll share one here with you that, sorry, let me fix my presentation here. This one I think you all know, but it is Duolingo, which is the language learning platform that has taken over the world. They have some 300 million users. Bear with me here as I fix this. So the Duolingo platform specifically is a good example of this adaptive testing and how this works. So the software is passive, but it actually adapts to the user in that the more you use it, the more it learns about you. So it also does something similar to what EduSync does, in that it pulls questions from a gigantic database based on the student's abilities. So it works very well for both formative testing as well as general passive learning of the language. And it's designed for younger learners. So in the fact that it's gamified and really helps improve student engagement. Okay, let me just jump into some of these other softwares here before I answer these questions here. Great questions, by the way, everybody. So going back to this, the general concept of implementing formative testing in the classroom. So embedding questions into your instruction. Now, this is something that many educators do normally during a course, and you may even do it without realizing it, where you simply ask a question during a class, and as students answer it, you can gather information from who's understanding what, but in terms of actually tracking it, it's quite difficult. And obviously now that we're all remote, asking a question over Zoom and having 25 or 30 students try to answer it simultaneously is simply not feasible. So this software, Nearpod, actually allows you to embed questions into your coursework. So the way that it works is for any type of document that you're building, whether it's a PDF, I think PDF is probably the most common, or any other kind of learning material, even a PowerPoint document, you can actually place the polls and short response questions into the materials. So this way, students will actually be able to engage with them while they're doing it. I also believe that this software allows you to put in some multimedia. So you can even add an audio clip or a video and actually go through and allow students to engage with the material instead of it just being like a textbook where they read it, they try to retain it, and then you test them at some point afterwards in a more formal manner. So, and the beauty of this is that all the data is actually collected and shown to you as a teacher. So this works very well for language instruction, but it also does work for other types of courses. So I would highly recommend checking this out. It has been shown to increase engagement substantially while subtly gathering information for you guys to further improve and guide and tailor your instruction. Another piece of software that I thought was very interesting that I wanted to share with everyone is this idea of screencasting. So for those of you who don't know, screencasting is basically recording what a student is doing on their device, and it also captures audio. So this is a very interesting tool because, again, with the focus being on increasing engagement, this keeps students not only on their toes because they know their session is going to be watched, but also allows them to create tutorials or guides or even explainer videos that can be shared with other students. So it has this kind of social dynamic to it where a student can answer a question, explain how they thought through it, and then that can be used either in class or shared with other students. So it inherently allows students to try harder and be more engaged with the material. Everyone wants to be, or not everyone, but most people want to be the one that's video is being shared. So this company, Explain Everything, allows you to embed screencasting on any kind of device. You know, in India specifically, this remote education is quite challenging because a lot of students here don't have access to computers. They only have access to mobile phones. So this provides a big hurdle in terms of getting them materials and allowing them to do activities that many of us do on a computer. So solutions like this make it very easy to keep students engaged and allow them to actually contribute to the class beyond just answering questions. Now, this piece of software I also thought was very interesting. So as I know many of you are familiar with exit slips and entry slips as an in-class concept, this is basically digitizing that. So this Adobe Spark software, you add it to your, or you use it to create your exit slips. And as students answer questions, they'll also be asked to either pose a question of their own or to create graphics. Now, the creation of graphics I thought was particularly interesting because you can use this to actually share it on social media and amongst other students in the course or in the school. So it really promotes, again, engagement, especially at the younger ages where many students probably won't be too thrilled with answering a questionnaire when they're coming and going from the class. So again, all of these softwares, especially now, given the current situation that everyone is facing globally, have either very high discounts or were designed to be used affordably. So, and again, at the end of the session, we'll send you guys all a list of these so you can check them out and see which ones have a fit at your organization. The idea with this one too, this Adobe Spark software, is that the results are instantaneous to the exit slips. So you get a document that basically tells you what students answered correctly or incorrectly, and you can use that to cater your instruction even for the next day. So one of the things I wanted to mention that I think is very important is that, especially in this digital age where we're all focused on trying to get students as engaged as possible, the important thing is to be constantly teaching and constantly assessing. So using tools like this allow you to do it in a way that the student doesn't feel like they're sitting down to take a test every single day. You ask a few questions, even ask them to add their own question, and make it more of a game and make it more engaging, telling them that whoever makes the coolest piece of art will be shared on social media, and you can actually gamify it as an instructor. So I think it provides a very interesting way to digitize the classroom and provide you with the ability to assess students regularly, daily, is really the important thing here. So again, moving back to Duolingo, just to talk about this a bit more, as I think it's very relevant for a lot of teachers in the session. Duolingo has 300 million users around the world, and their focus is language. So I think most of their users on the platform, about half of them, are English language learners. So the English language curriculum, which is tied to the CEFR, is extremely robust and it's free. So the software is free for students to use on their own. I also believe that there is an extremely affordable package they offer to institutions that you can use to gather information on the students. Now, this is a different type of informal formative assessment in that the students are using it and they're learning, but the entire time they're doing this, it's gathering data on them and feeding it to you as a teacher. So it doesn't feel like they're being tested, and every single day that they use it, you get more information. Duolingo also does have a testing function, but the way they do it is at the end of each course they have on the software, they'll have a test for the students to showcase their knowledge. So this will actually help you get information on what the kids are learning. And it's also individualized. Every student will see different questions and even different test questions based on their own individual strengths and weaknesses. Now, moving on to what my company does, I'll actually just share the website with you guys. It'll be easier. So when it comes to actually using EduSync in the classroom, we offer CEFR testing specifically. Now, the way that we do it is a bit more formal in that students will receive an email saying you have a test to take, please log on to do your exam. The way that this was designed was, again, for formative testing. So as students go through the system, it is tracking a number of characteristics of theirs and feeding you with information that you can then use to guide your course. And because it's based on English language specifically and based on CEFR, it does really allow you to see strengths and weaknesses across the 4 skills: reading, listening, speaking, and writing, and across all the different CEFR levels. We've actually broken out the CEFR from the 6 levels into 14. So it gives you even more insight in terms of where a student may sit, even if it's between the A1 and A2 levels. So in that sense, the software, again, was designed to be used in such a way that you can test students regularly. And instead of getting screenshots of where they are, which I guess would be considered summative assessment, you can do this regularly on a weekly basis or even a couple times a week, and even do it on specific skills. So if, one of the participants mentioned reading earlier. So you can issue a reading test to students that lasts 20 minutes on a modern looking platform on their cell phones as well, that will allow them to do a reading test and feed you with data about where their strengths and weaknesses lie. So there's a number of questions here. What I'll do is I'll just wrap up the presentation here, and then we can jump right into the Q&A. I think there's enough there for us to discuss. So again, going back to Hannah, who I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, as the head of English program, she has a lot on her plate, and with everything going digital, we're just here to try to help. So the main function of a lot of the educational software that you guys will come across, while some of them do have price tags attached, they are very understanding of the situation, and everyone is in the same boat in trying to get educators like you the tools you need to conduct your jobs effectively remotely. And that's it. I wanted just to share with you my LinkedIn here in case anyone wants to add me. Sorry, I'm facing some technical difficulties here. If you have LinkedIn on your cell phone, you can scan this QR code here and you will be connected to me instantly. Again, what we'll do is after the session is over, I think we'll do some Q&A now. After the session is over, we will send you guys the presentation, the slideshow, and again, we're very open to receiving questions and comments in terms of what kinds of softwares you guys are looking for, and any kind of guidance that I can provide personally, I'm happy to do. So on that note, let me dive into some of these questions here. Jingzi, I'm not sure if you want me to just answer these outright or how we should go about this. Maybe I can just jump right in here.
Okay. Sean,
Yes.
I guess you're now giving me the cue for the Q&A, right? So we'll go into
Yes.
the Q&A now. Huh? So, okay, that was
Let's do
a
it.
very interesting sharing from Sean. So we have a few questions posted here. So let me see, I've selected a few questions. So mostly a lot of them are actually concerned on the issue of security and protection. So how will this be addressed? Will there, like personal information, the issue of security? I guess a lot of teachers are very worried and concerned, they get trapped when they use all these apps, right? So how would you explain this?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think, so in our case specifically, we face this issue all the time. And in different countries around the world, the security restrictions are different. So the best way to approach this on a case-by-case basis and based on use cases as well. So I'll give you a concrete example. So we're working with a school in France, and France has a very specific mandate that the data captured must be hosted on a server in France. So the security on the platform has to meet a certain standard, and this standard is tested by security people at the university, mostly to prevent people extracting data from the platform. What you will see and what we've had to do, and what you'll come across a lot when you work with these software companies, is that they're very flexible in terms of being able to integrate with a university's system. So in this example, this university in France that we work with, we had to actually allow the data to be stored on their servers. So this kind of allows us to avoid any of these privacy conversations in terms of violating privacy rights of the students. By being part of the university or the school, they obviously have their own data on the school servers, and integrating the data allows us to avoid any potential problems there. In terms of the technologies that capture, I guess, very specific data and personal data. So in our case, we have this anti-fraud prevention tool that we use where individuals have to take a screenshot of their government-issued ID to prove that they are who they say they are. So in this case, it does require an additional level of security that that we provide and that we've had to invest in to be able to make sure that the system is secure and not going to be broken into. Again, with universities and schools that we work with, a lot of them will request that we give them this data and that it's stored on their own servers. So that way the student feels comfortable that the school is the one housing the data. In terms of the regulations they have to meet when it comes to privacy, the school already adheres to those issues. And we just act more as a facilitator of transmitting that data, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, and I think you have explained quite well there. I think the attendees should understand. There's one interesting question here, though, Sean. This person has asked, what would be the best tool to test spoken language formatively? Is there a tool that can record, assess students' speaking skills progressively?
Great question. So, and I've spent a lot of time looking into this. This is something that we do at EduSync, and it's something that a lot of companies around the world are trying to solve right now. So just to give you the background on how this typically works. So most companies will have a platform that allows a student to record, and they will then analyze it using some kind of machine or artificial intelligence. There are many companies out there that say that they do this. They say that they do this, but they actually do not. So what they'll end up doing is they'll just have a person actually listening and then scoring a test or a recording. At EduSync, we actually have a platform that allows you as teachers to receive and then score these spoken submissions. And there are a few companies out there that are doing this in a way where it really proves to be effective. So one of them is Duolingo. Duolingo has a spoken component that is quite good, although it does it in short phrases. There are a few other companies that do long form speaking analysis. I mean, I can pass some of those names along to you guys. The only problem with this is that, especially for educators, most of these companies that do this spoken analysis do it for companies looking to hire English speakers. It's a very different profile than someone who is taking a speaking class. And the big problem when it comes to a computer analyzing spoken English or spoken language is the context. So I've personally tested dozens of these different platforms, and most that I found, even ones that are extremely well funded, backed by the likes of Google and IBM, when you answer a question, all it does is really determine your accent and your pronunciation, which mine is, as a native speaker, is obviously quite good. But I'll give you a very concrete example. I was asked by one of the platforms, tell me about a person in your life who you look up to, a role model. And I answered the question speaking about a trip to Europe last year that I took. And I got very high marks because I have a native accent and I used proper grammar and I spoke well during the test. However, the machine was not able to analyze the context of my answer. So it had no idea that I was actually answering a question that had nothing to do with the question I was asked. So while a lot of companies are developing solutions around this, my personal recommendation would still be to use either do it yourselves or use a company that has a network of professors who do the analysis. In our case specifically, we offer both. So we have this freelance network of certified English professors who will receive and analyze within 24 hours any spoken submission along any guidelines. So most of our teachers do it along the guidelines of a TOEFL or IELTS or the CEFR. But the platform is really meant to be used in the way to facilitate the transmission of these spoken and even written submissions. So a student of yours who's at home, who wants to have their speaking tested regularly, you can issue them a test on the EduSync platform. They'll submit on the system, either on their phone or on the computer. They'll record their voice, and they'll actually, when they're finished, it will actually send you an email saying, you now have a spoken submission to analyze. You log on to the EduSync platform, and you'll be able to listen to their audio and then comment on it and give them feedback. So the way of using technology at this present moment, I think, is best used as a facilitator as opposed to the be-all, end-all and the one that does all the analysis. Because the machine at this point simply cannot do, what you guys do as well as you guys do it. So my recommendation, and I can send you a few names, in a follow-up email after this with a few softwares to look at. And the way that it could be used also, maybe you have the student do one of these assessments first, give it a first pass for things like grammar and accent. And then when it comes to actual contextual analysis, you guys would be the ones to end up doing it yourselves or having it outsourced to another teacher.
Yes, excellent explanation there, Sean. I guess they understand what you said, and you will be providing them with an email and also like where they can communicate with you if they need further information. Yes? And also naturally the next question would be, how affordable would this be to them? So this is, I think, running in everyone's mind now.
Yep.
As good as it sounds.
Yes, this is one of the challenges that a lot of educators face, is finding affordable technology. So a lot of companies that do these more machine learning focused solutions can end up being quite expensive. However, in India, you have a lot of technology companies that are designed for scale within the Indian market. So to give you guys an idea of how large the Indian market is, obviously there's more than 1 billion people in total here, but there are 300 million students in the country. So half the population, some 600 to 700 million people, are 25 years old or younger. And a lot of these tech companies that are built here are designed to operate in the areas that 80% of Indians live in, which is rural, outside the cities, not necessarily a lot of bandwidth, energy failings every day. And it's all designed to be done on your mobile device and at a very affordable price point. When I say affordable, I mean, $1 a month or less per student. So some of the solutions here that I've come across, even for English language training, are 5-10 rupees a month, which ends up being around 10 cents or less. So I think when you're looking at some of these solutions, and the ones that I send you and the ones that I showcased in the presentation, these are some of the bigger players in the space. Most of them are actually in the Western world. I will make sure to include in the follow-up email some materials and companies you can look at from this part of the world that were designed and built and deployed here. Whether it's in India or even in Vietnam, there's a lot of different areas where people are building solutions designed for scale at a very low price point. So in that sense, there are certainly solutions out there. And from my experience, even operating in South America and here primarily in India, the price points can vary quite dramatically based on the profile of the students, obviously. But the idea here really is to provide a solution that can be adopted by an institution, used at scale and with ease that does not break the bank. So Duolingo, for instance, is free. There's no cost for a student to sign up or start using it. If they want to remove the ads, I think they pay a monthly fee. I think for educators, for schools, I don't even think that schools need to pay for it based on what I've come to understand. And they have the model there is really just to get the students on and try to get the students to individually pay for it if they want additional features. So you'll end up coming across a lot of these creative and what they call freemium types of platforms where you can get started for free and use it for free. And then if you want some of the more advanced features, you end up paying.
Yeah. So I guess for those who are interested, they can always email you to get more information. That would be better. I think you will get better explanation from Sean on EduSync and what they provide. Okay, and I think we have addressed a number of questions here. If we don't get to answer all your questions, we will try to follow up after this webinar session, and you may also email the questions to Sean at the email address given by Sean. And for those who wish to be a part of Melta, this is just another thing, you may visit our Melta website to access the membership as well as register as a member, and we will share the website address with you. And I think, Chengzi, we are getting 2 participants to give some comments.
Yes, correct. So I think there will be among you participants among here who would like to share their opinion, their thoughts on this matter. So if you would like to share, so what we encourage you is, I'm going to lower all hands right now. Okay, so what you can do is, if you're keen to share, you can actually raise your hand. So there is a function button at the bottom that you can raise your hand, and then we will allow you to speak and you are able to share your thought with all the participants here. So I'm going to open it now. So if you're keen, so just raise your hand. All right, so we will allow you to speak. So just make sure that your microphone is working. Yeah. We are still waiting, so I think so far we don't have anyone yet. Yeah, so we have Kanimozi who would like to speak, so I'm going to allow you to chat. So Kanimozi, you will need to unmute yourself in order to speak. Would you want to share your thought here?
Hi, good evening. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so actually I'm not an English language teacher, but previously I used to teach English. Now I'm teaching Bahasa as a foreign language. So I think the presenter shared about, I think the presenter's name is Sean, right? He shared about Duolingo, I think. Yeah. I just, while he was talking, I just opened the web and checked it out. And I find that it's actually very useful. For especially because I'm teaching foreign students Bahasa as a foreign language, especially those from Japan, Korea. So I think that this app is actually very beneficial, and I would like to practice this more with my students. So I think thank you for that sharing that app. Really appreciate that. And also, I think in regards with Nearport, I've tried Nearport as well. In terms of the poll section, it's actually very useful because students normally when I have face-to-face class, they don't talk much. But during this online class, when I use Nearport, when there is a question on polls, students are actually very quiet. They begin to voice out, and you can actually know that actually they are not weak, or they are not to say they don't understand this. That I mean, like they have not been given a chance to talk, or they're just shy. So I think through this app, Nearport, I think it's actually very applicable for all educators to use it. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else? Is there another person?
So far, none. Yeah.
Okay. I guess they're a bit shy today. In previous sessions, like they were like waiting to, I guess, Sean, you must have done a very good job explaining everything that is needed to be known.
I hope so.
Yeah. So if there are no hand raised, so indeed it was a good session, Sean. And I guess the ball is back in our court now, teachers. It all comes back to us to decide on which best fits our students, given the different environment and access both teachers and students have in exploring the various softwares, interesting formative assessment tools and softwares introduced to us by Sean today to enhance student engagement in formative assessment. It is indeed formative assessment is indeed a very important teaching element that is currently given high priority in our, in our teaching and learning as prescribed by the new CEFR, okay, aligned KSSM curriculum framework. So thus what we were exposed to in today's webinar session, in times of the new norm, a teaching scenario as mentioned by Sean, before Corona and after the disease, right? These are the new norms that we are now adopting. So teachers, we have to adapt, okay? And this webinar session has really been an eye-opener to us, and it's up to us now, teachers, to decide on which app, which tool, or which platform would be the most appropriate. And I guess with a little bit of planning and a little bit of support from our schools or our associations, I guess we should be able to conduct formative assessment and monitor our students' learning progress with suitable online tools. And with that, I would like to take my leave, and I would pass the session back to Dr. Cynthia.
Thank you, Shanti. Okay. Thank you, Sean, for an insightful, meaning, informative, and interesting session. That's all the adjectives that I could think of at the moment, all right? If I think of more, I'll add on, okay. Now, there are a few points that I would like, that was my takeaway for your session. Now, the first one being that, and I'd like to share this with the teachers, teaching and learning today, it is something that you constantly teach and test, as well as you promptly get feedback. And if technology can help with that, then I would say, think about it and pick the right one. Another point was adaptive testing in place of formative testing. I think Sean spoke about that. Another thing that Sean stressed on was students' engagement is key, right? Software using is effectively so as to gather information on students' learning and testing. I think most teachers now, we're very familiar with data-driven. And some of the software give you that. All right, and feedback is given to the teacher about the students. And of course, the various softwares that were available. And most of all is use technology as a facilitator and not the be-all. And I think if we follow that, we can't go wrong if we stay focused. Again, once again, Sean, thank you so very much. Just a reminder to all our participants here, our Oxford webinar series, number 8, which will be on the 3rd of July. I think Chengza will give a little bit more on that. And on behalf of Melta, we would like to thank you very, very much for attending this. And once again, Sean, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cynthia, and thank you, Ms. Shanti. And
sorry, James, I forgot to thank Oxford as well. Thank you all.
Okay. So thank you, Sean, for such a valuable session on formative assessment. So I particularly, so when we had a dry run, so I was very thrilled by the word, the BC and AD before Corona and after disease, So that will be my new lingo now. So, so before I end the session, I will just like to share again some just a reminder for everyone. So just to remind everyone that all participants today will receive an e-certificate within 7 working days via email. So this is the email that you have registered with. And also this session has now been recorded and it will be uploaded onto our Oxford Fajar and Melta website and Facebook pages. There will also be a feedback form where you are able to also put in your feedback. Registration for upcoming webinars, please ensure that you put in your full name because that is the exact name that we'll be using for the e-certificate. So on the 3rd of July, we will be having our 8th webinar, and it is also for this series of webinar, we're going to have this is the last for this particular series. We may have a season 2, but for this particular season 1, this will be our last series next week. It will be on MUET, a holistic approach. So for those of you who have been looking forward to Dr. Cynthia's presentation, so do join us. She will be there. And we will also have another teacher who will be also joining us. So as most of you are aware, I think there will be some changes. There are some changes to the MUET syllabus and approach. So do join us to find out more, So thank you once again, Melta, Melta for coming with us and joining us together, and thank you once again to all participants as well as Sean and Shanti. So I think that's about.
Can I just have one final word before we sign off?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank everyone as well, and again, thank you to all 3 of you for helping me with this presentation, and Oxford, Fajar Oxford University Press, Melta, and to all the participants who joined today. It's always a pleasure to be connected with other educators. I just wanted to mention once again, if you have any questions or want to discuss anything that you need as an individual teacher or at your institution, please email me. My email address is Sean, S-E-A-N, @edusync.com. Add me on LinkedIn. We can definitely chat. One of the things that I wanted to offer to everybody is, while EduSync is obviously a for-profit company and a startup, we are giving out free trials and free usage to a lot of different institutions nowadays to help you in this transition from BC to AD. So please contact me, and we'd be happy to help in whatever way we can, and even customizing things for your institution. So, but yeah, thank you once again, everybody. I appreciate the time and the effort.
Sorry, for those of you who asked how to register for the next webinar session, the registration is not open yet, so it will be open. Do look out for your email. You will receive an email, and do register once you receive the email. There will be a link provided. Yeah, thank you once again. Thanks.
Okay,
right.
bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah.
So we stay on, is it?
No, bye. All right.
Bye, Sean.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Sean. Bye, Sean.